Right, we're going to call to order this Board of Education meeting for November 18th. And we're going to begin with a moment of reflection. Thank you. We now want to welcome the young men and women from Oak Grove to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, you might want to stand there for a second so your parents can get photos. Parents, we all good?
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Dr. Barrow, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir. The agenda is ready. I would recommend the board approve as submitted.
Need a motion in a second?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? All right, the next on our agenda is recognitions, which is always our favorite part of the evening, and I'll turn it over to Melinda Berry-Dreisbach.
Good evening, everybody. Before we get into our student and staff recognitions this evening, I would like to invite Mr. Sam Sweat to come up to the podium to recognize our customer service recipients for the month.
Thank you, Ms. Dreisbach and Mr. Raybold for helping me with this. For the audience, we have monthly customer service winners from every school, and we select a department each month. So out of the 14 elementary schools, we have 2 winners, 1 middle and 1 high. Tonight, we do have 2 high school winners because I made a mistake from last month. And of course, good customer service is admitting your mistakes and making sure you correct them. So tonight, I'm going to do that. The first winner, and this is one from McIntosh High School with Dr. Dan Lane, is Miss Ada Kuyas. She's a business education teacher. If you would come up, Miss Kuyas, stand beside me for just a second. Ms. Kuyas always puts the needs of the students first and is willing to work with them before and after school when needed. She is respectful in all her interactions with parents, and she makes them feel like their child is a priority. One thing that Dr. Lane told me that really stood out was that when he had a new teacher and they had a situation there that Ms. Kuyas volunteered and worked hard to make sure that her kids had lesson plans, she was taken care of, and that everything was running smoothly. So Dr. Lane had nothing but the utmost respect for you. So we really appreciate your professionalism. Thank you so much. Mr. Raybo, you want to give her... Please, sir. Thank you. Okay, our second winner is Elizabeth Martinez, and she is a Title I interpreter at Cleveland Elementary in Bennett's Mill. And Miss Southers was ecstatic when she heard that Miss Martinez had won, and I'm going to read why she was so excited. Miss Martinez goes above and beyond for the parents of our ESOL students. She knows the families that she is working with, and she does the best to meet her needs. She even provides transportation for families and students, if needed, to and from school events. She reaches out to staff and to make sure that the parents are contacted so that they can have great results. She also completes all of her tasks in a very timely manner. So we just could not do without her, and we appreciate you so much. But Mr. Raybold will take care of you. Thank you for all your work. We appreciate you. Okay, from our middle school, Coach Ryan Ross from Rising Star Middle School. All right, Coach Ross is a PE and health teacher. He also won the championship for middle school football. And here's what Ms. Smith, his principal, had to say about him. Ryan Ross is very encouraging. He's very supportive of our students. He's also a dedicated teacher. And I want to read this one thing to you. This is really important. Coach Ross had a student that could not play football this year but wanted to be a part of the team. So what Coach Ross did, he allowed the student to be on the team. He allowed them to wear a jersey. He allowed them to be on the field to support them. And he made that student's fall by allowing him to be a part of the team. And then when they played Bennett's Mill for the championship, after the game, he emailed the coach and the principal to tell them what a good job they did and that they showed a lot of character in the championship game. Shows class and professionalism. We appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support. All right, Beverly Black from Fayette Elementary School, and she is EIP teacher, right? Okay. This is when you teach in the classroom with 20, 25 kids, and I talked to the principal at length about this today, when you go into the EIP classroom, which is less kids, less numbers, because you have to work more individually, sometimes teachers really enjoy that smaller setting. What Ms. Black did when they had that, we got a new fourth grade allotment for Fayetteville Elementary, and we had a long-term sub. Well, after 2 weeks, the long-term said, you know, I don't think this is really for me. I think the kids maybe got the best of her. So what Ms. Black did was step up and say, hey, Ms. Lawrence, let me be the teacher until you can find a qualified fourth grade teacher. I'll take control of the situation, and I'll help out any way I can. So not only did she have to enter grades and do all the parent conferences and get control of the class, she did it as a professional, and she did it with a great attitude, and that's what great customer service is all about. We really appreciate that, Ms. Black. Thank you. All right, Ms. Hankey, cafeteria manager, Stars Mill Rising Star. All right, when you think about a high school of 1,400, then a middle school close to 1,000, she's over both of those kitchens. So that's a really, really big job. And so here's what she does so well. I talked to Mr. Leonard and to Ms. Smith. She makes everybody feel welcome who comes into the kitchen. She also takes care of any kids who have financial difficulties. She works with the parents. She takes care of the teachers. And so she goes out of her way to extend customer service to anybody who comes in the kitchen. And what the principals told me, what happens then is when the leader does that, it filters down throughout everybody else that works in that kitchen. So with that, we say thanks for all you do. Appreciate it. All right, last but not least is Bob Corletto from the Transportation Department. Come on down, Bob. All right, this is a special job because he drives a school bus. And sometimes driving a school bus is not the easiest job. But let me tell you how Bob makes it a great job. Bob is friendly, courteous, personable, and enthusiastic. He loves his job, and it goes beyond just transporting students. He builds rapport with his students. He greets them all by name as they board the bus. Smart. He chooses, and listen to this, he chooses an elementary student each week and presents him with a medal for demonstrating leadership on the bus. He attends school-sponsored events, including a community night for the neighborhood he transports. He is loved not only by students, but also by parents. So, with that being said, you are a professional bus driver. We appreciate your service, and we thank you so much for what you do. Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Okay, now we're going to move into our student and staff recognitions. And before I bring up the first group of students, I just want to tell you a little bit about the first recognition we're going to have tonight, and that's our Clemson Poetry Declamation Contest. We have a number of competitions that, as a school system, we go to every year, and we just seem to dominate those competitions, and this is one of them. We had all 5 of our high schools participating in this competition this year, and our schools collectively took 40% of the placements at this competition. And this competition draws students from Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. All totaled, our students earned 25 first place awards, 25 second place awards, and 18 third place awards. So that is very impressive. But on top of that, our students also swept 2 categories of German and 1 category of Spanish. They have to recite 2 poems by memory, and they are evaluated on pronunciation, interpretation, smoothness of delivery, and accuracy. So tonight we're going to recognize our 25 first place winners, and we have first place winners from all 5 high schools. So tonight we're going to start with Fayette County High. And from Fayette County High School, we have Anahis Orusco, French 2A-1. Anoime Eruger, did I pronounce that right? German 1A-1. Arshi Nurani, Spanish 2A-2. And Alicia Graham, Spanish 2A-9. And our teachers are Dr. Georges Nana, Lucia Flynn, and Andy Jones. Congratulations. Thank you. Yeah, we're good. Okay, next we have McIntosh High School. And from McIntosh, we have Irene Song, native Chinese, Katrina Thompson, native German, Kennedy Malone, Spanish 1A-1, Minnie Jin Shin, Spanish 1A-5, Abigail Newton, Spanish 1A-6, Madhavi Raj, Prem Kumar, Spanish 2A-4. Maddie Shelton, Spanish 2A-5. Julia Delani, Spanish 3A-1. Naomi Daniels, Spanish 3A-5. Andrew Graffio, Spanish 4A-2. And our teachers are Lecter Zamor, Kevin Kehoe, Irma Schwing-Sackle, Alina Ramsey, Brooke Lloyd, and Teresa Togneri. Okay, congratulations. Okay, next we have Sandy Creek High School. And from Sandy Creek, we have Emerald Brighton, Spanish 1A-4, and her teacher, Denise Daniel. We have a photo. Did you get your photo? Congratulations. Okay, next we have Stars Mill High School. And from Stars Mill, we have Noah Ellis, French 2A-2. Elizabeth Jackson, German 2A-1. Taja Pulagam, Spanish 3A-2. Daniel Stackhouse, Spanish 3A-3. Noah Ellis, Spanish 4A-1. Carolyn Carl, Spanish 4B-1. And Virginia Jackson, Spanish 4B-2. And our teachers here tonight are Laura Aldrich and Madeline Rodriguez. Stand there for a second. I think we're still getting some photos. Congratulations. Okay, next we have Whitewater High School. And making her way down from Whitewater High School is Ellis Spears, and she won first place in French 1A-1, and her teacher is Susan Jackson. Congratulations. Okay, that concludes our student recognitions, and we have one staff and/or I should say department recognition tonight. So if I may call Miss Rosie Gwynn, she is the Director of Exceptional Children's Services. Okay, you probably already know that our school system's graduation rate is one of the highest in the state, but what you may not know is that we have the highest graduation rate in the state for students with disabilities. And Ms. Gwynn, Ms. Gwynn wanted me to make sure that I pointed out that this is for students who graduate at some point in time. It's not necessarily within 4 years like our regular student graduation rate. This is for students with disabilities who do end up graduating with a regular ed diploma from our county at some point in time. Our 2019 graduation rate is 91.5%. And because of this high percentage, our school system is one of 60 school systems, and this is out of 181 school systems in the state that is featured on the Georgia Department of Education's Spotlight on Success webpage. In order to be featured on the webpage, school systems must have a graduation rate for students with disabilities that is 85% or higher. And on that webpage, systems share their initiatives and practices that have had a positive impact on student outcomes related to decreased dropout rates, student engagement, and overall student success. So congratulations to Ms. Rosie Gwynn and the entire Exceptional Children's Services Department for this achievement. And that concludes our recognitions.
Thank you. It's always wonderful to celebrate the quality of and recognize the quality of our students and staff. Next up, comments from the public. We don't have anybody signed up for comments from the public, so we'll go ahead and move on to presentations. And Dr. Bear, I'll turn it over to you. I think Sandy Creek is up, the feeder pattern.
That's correct. Our Sandy Creek High School feeder pattern with Birch, North Fayette, Flat Rock, and Sandy Creek High School.
Good evening. My name is Richard Smith. I'm the interim principal here at Sandy Creek High School, and it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Jay Bolton, for the principal at Flat Rock, Lisa Moore, principal at North Fayette, and Lisa Howell, principal at Robert J. Birch. So we're going to start off with our presentation. So Kay, if you want to go ahead and bring up the video, and we'll kind of give you an overview of the North Complex.
The Fayette County Schools of the North Complex invite you today to share in our journey towards a graduate. Today, we represent the 2019-2020 feeder school pattern that includes the schools of Robert J. Birch Elementary, North Fayette Elementary, Flat Rock Middle, and Sandy Creek High. As we collectively consider the strengths of our schools, it is obvious that two areas stand out: creativity and community support. These are evident in the progressive, forward-thinking initiatives of North Fayette's Georgia Tech Research Institute Severe Storm Center Edition, Birch's STEAM and Gardening initiatives, which include the school community garden and food forest, Flat Rock's Community for Creativity, with an integration of STEAM-focused learning, and Sandy Creek's innovative film production studio collaborative, along with the implementation of the International Baccalaureate program. These strategic endeavors join our schools together to build a cohesive vertical alignment for creativity. So together, we share creativity. We collaborate by brainstorming ideas, thinking out of the box, and visualizing the possibilities that can make it happen. We confront challenging, real-world problems with innovation, collaboration, and hands-on learning. We are constantly motivating each other to reach our goals. We facilitate new ideas and creative works of art to bring form and function together. We nurture student motivation and interest through a variety of literacy, scientific, technological, and artistic venues. And together, we share community. We embrace our stakeholders by helping others in need of support and receiving the gifts and talents of the ones in our circle that are willing to share. We celebrate those who have given so much for our freedom and well-being while showing respect for the wisdom of the generations who have led the way so far. When we review the multiple sources of data provided and determine our individual priorities for growth, we recognize our needs are very similar within our schools. Our targets for continued growth are to increase literacy across all disciplines and to close the gaps in academic achievement within our diverse populations. So together, we are growing in literacy. In today's world, literacy is more than reading a book or writing an essay. We strive to make enhanced literacy an essential part of our daily lives. We have increased the focus on interdisciplinary opportunities for speaking, presenting, listening, and writing in all curriculum areas to better serve our students beyond the classroom walls. And together, we are growing in achievement. We continue to push our students to excel academically by targeting increased performances in the distinguished and proficient levels on the Georgia Milestones Assessment. We collectively target support for students in the developmental range of performance by strengthening our core instruction, analyzing the data that measures where a student is at critical points of the year, providing targeted learning and experiences for each student, and by using our resources efficiently. With your support, we will continue to grow and thrive with the following considerations. As Flat Rock continues to evolve as a center for creativity, the addition of STEAM arts integration classes in drama and dance will provide richer opportunities for students who are interested in the arts and film pathway. As Birch and North Fayette elementary schools continue to reach new levels of applied learning through technological and scientific projects, there is a need for a creative liaison to support teachers and coordinate the many elements of an appropriate diverse curriculum. As we witness the dynamics of increased challenges and changes that our families experience, we all have seen the need for additional support in the social, emotional learning environment for our students. We believe all our schools need continued access to mental health support in the building. The training and awareness for all staff are needed and appreciated. However, continued expertise is essential when working directly with the sensitive emotional needs of our students. As the North Complex works together and continues to share this exciting journey of a graduate in Fayette County, we celebrate our many accomplishments and look forward to taking on the challenges ahead together. The Fayette County Schools of the North.
Thank you, guys. Good evening, everybody. I'm Lisa Howe. I'm the principal at Robert J. Birch Elementary. And because Birch is what we go by, I got elected to go first because I'm the B. Ms. Bolton is handing you some folders that contain our snapshots on there. Okay, if you want to pull up Robert J. Birch's, we'll talk about that. So as I said, I am the principal at Robert J. Birch. We are the home of the Bears, where we are focused on creating curious, capable, and compassionate learning community. It is an honor for us all to be here tonight to share some of the great things going on in our schools. So if you would look at the Robert J. Birch snapshot, that might help you out while I talk. At Birch, we're fortunate to be a Title I school. We have lots of resources to supplement our instruction and help our students and families. But we're also focused on the growth of all students, and we realize the value of Tier 1 instruction. Historically, literacy has been a challenge area for us, an area of growth. So in response to that, a few years ago, we began our literacy intervention block called Win What I Need, which is designed to give students at all performance levels what they need. This block is reevaluated by teachers every 4 or 5 weeks based on student data, and students are regrouped and we plan instruction based on their strengths and their areas of growth. Well, last year with Title I money, we were able to implement Lexia Core 5 reading program as part of this component, school-wide for all students, low and up to high. And if you look at our snapshot in the content mastery area, you'll see that our English language arts grew about 8 points on our content mastery. We were really proud of that. If you look at our progress in ELA, you'll see that it grew 15 points. As you can see, obviously, an area for us is closing the gaps. And if you could see all of that, our ELA closing the gaps looks outstanding. Where we didn't do as well is in our math, science, and social studies. So that leads us to our continued focus on increasing the effectiveness of our Tier 1 instruction. So if you want to look down at the bottom, you'll see that we have 2 goals in our school-wide improvement plan, our Title I plan. The first is that by 2024, all students meet their individual subgroup performance targets. And to attack this, we are focusing this year and for the next couple of years on teacher clarity. I'm sure some of you have become aware with John Hattie's work about the importance and the effect of teacher clarity and clarity of instruction. We began with some professional learning on that, and we are working on it throughout the year with our first focus area being math. And this is something we do weekly with our teachers while students are in STEAM during that Thursday time. So we work on clarity and really looking at our standards and breaking it down. Some of you might be familiar with the old backwards design, but kind of looking at it that way. We will continue our literacy win block and our differentiation for students of all ability levels there. And we're going to continue with our school-wide use of Lexia. We saw great results, and we don't want to throw that baby out, so we're keeping that baby in the bathwater. We're continuing to monitor and increase our student engagement. We are a SEEKS school, and we're working on with building collective efficacy and increasing student engagement. And in a minute, I'll tell you another way about that. And then we are increasing our collaborative support for students with disabilities and English language learners. We all know that when students are pulled out of effective Tier 1 instruction to a smaller setting where they don't have a wide range of peers, that they're not exposed to as much curriculum. And so what we've done is we've worked our schedule so that we are increasing the amount of collaborative support in the classroom and trying to limit the amount of pull-out support. In addition, we are trying to increase our student engagement and the experiential knowledge of our students, fostering those 4 C's of creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking through our STEAM and garden initiatives. And these are weekly initiatives that we have going on for an extended amount of time. And if you have just a second, I can tell you a couple of ways you can help us. Are you interested? Okay, heads nodding. All righty. As you heard in the presentation, we are all, and I think you're very aware of this because you've heard, as a county, we're seeing an increase in the needs of our students, the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of our students. We're seeing an increase in the numbers of students presenting struggles, and we want to help these students be successful, and that is just an area as a county that you're going to hear, we need help, and we want to meet these students' needs, and we want to do it in the best way possible. So we don't have an answer. I don't have a plan to sell you, but any consideration you can give there would be most appreciated. The other thing that I hope you noticed in our presentation is a creative liaison to support the ongoing programs that we have at our schools. Now, I know that Dr. Barrow is a fan of the Purple Cow, and so at the Garden and STEAM program at Birch and the initiatives that are going on at Flat Rock and also now at North Fayette are kind of like our Purple Cow. So I want to tell you that our Birch Garden project began 5 years ago as an outreach of Hopewell United Methodist Church. It's now grown. We have 6 kitchen garden beds, 4 pollinator beds, the last 2 just finished this weekend, a geodome that serves as a winter greenhouse, and an outdoor classroom with a kitchen area. And we have seating to go into that thanks to an Eagle Scout project. So last year, we also began a weekly STEAM initiative in which students rotate through 4 9-week units. These units are designed to foster inquiry, collaboration, content integration, creativity, communication, and of course, the design process. And as I said earlier, while our students are rotating through these units, and these lessons last about 90 to 100 minutes. It's not a 45-minute block. It's a get in there, let's get dirty, let's figure this out, let's learn to solve a problem type of thing. That's when our teachers are meeting and we're collaborating and we're talking about those standards and we're looking at how we can be more clear with our instruction. But while all of these initiatives are impactful on their own, we know that they could be much more. And so our vision is for the Garden and STEAM initiatives to become not additional things, but our approach to learning. We want these to become the weft, I brought visual aids, the weft that binds all of the content and the learner diversity together. And for those of you that aren't weavers, this is the weft, okay? This is the warp. This is the weft. And we want the garden to be our approach to things. So therefore, we are hoping that you will consider the addition of a creative liaison to help us pull everything together. We see this person regularly collaborating with teachers to develop, model, co-teach, coach, support all these initiatives to be a professional, to help us with professional development, to help us integrate the inquiry, content integration, the design process, and to even implement garden therapy for some of these kids, because I personally find there's no better therapy than digging in the dirt and physical labor. So we hope that you will consider this request. I know Dr. Moore may mention it as well, but that is the Birch part of it. Any questions? Thank you.
Good evening. I am Lisa Moore. I am the proud principal of North Fayette. I hope you're feeling better, Dr. Barrow. We missed you this morning. And we are the home of the Dolphins. And our motto there is together is better. I just want to take time to say thank you for the additional resources that you gave to us last year to North Fayette. You gave us $3,000 And having the privilege of being a Title I school, we tend to focus mostly on supplemental remedial resources, but in order to truly close the gap, Dr. Reckley and I met, and we felt like that we needed to move our 2s to 3s and our 3s to 4s. And the best way to do this was to go away from looking at remedial work so much, but also look at our Tier 1 instruction. And we reminded all of our staff members that Tier 1 instruction is the responsibility of every educator in the building. And in doing so, with the $3,000, what we did to enhance our Tier 1 instruction was we provided job-embedded professional learning to our 3rd through 5th grade teachers during the month of January to March. During those PL opportunities, they were half-day, and they were conducted by Beth Donzilla because our focus was literacy, but more so with an emphasis on writing. So to enhance that Tier 1 instruction, we looked at literacy across the board, and if you now take a look at our scores, you will see that the use of that $3,000 with the job-embedded professional learning warranted us to increase our scores. We made improvement in progress. If you'll take a look at that, we went from 85.2 to 88.8. We also increased in closing the gap, and I tend to be a very humble person, but I'd be remorseful if I didn't take time to draw your attention to that plus sign behind the 100 on the closing the gap. That plus sign says that we made more than that, but the state wants us to stay humble too, and remember we have growth. So I did want to bring that to your attention, though. I told Dr. Reckley I promised her I would. Another area of improvement that we saw was our climate score. This was one of the areas that when I came to North Fayette that I did a survey with the students and the staff and the parents, and this was an area that they asked for it to be increased in the climate score. And within a year, we have done so. We increased our parental engagement with the use of our Title I liaison. We have more frequent school-to-home communication. We also go out into our community where we're accommodating our non-English speaking families. And so with that said, we were able to move our climate score from a 4 to a 5 this year, which we're very proud of. But we also know that with GLOWs, there's always growth. And our growth is in the area of readiness. If I can draw your attention, you can see that our attendance rate went down. And rather than wait till next year to address this, we looked at it immediately. We met with our leadership team, and we wanted to develop a way that we could not only get buy-in from our students, but also to share with our parents that attendance in school is important. There is research to show that students that are on time and are at school often have better results than those students that are late or not at school. So we want our parents to understand the importance of school. And for us, our students do not drive. So it's important that we go the route with the parents. So we do have some incentives that we put in place for attendance for our students as well as our parents. Our goals for this year was to continue to increase or enhance our Tier 1 instruction, and how we did that was to look at differentiation of instruction. We had our teachers do a book study this summer or fall, whichever they choose to do, but they were required to do that book study. And we also have any professional learning that comes into our building, ELA and math, to focus on this differentiation of instruction. Our other goal was to continue to increase the family engagement, and then, like I just said, to improve the attendance as mentioned earlier. I will not go over the bottom, it's self-explanatory, but most of this, our goals we are achieving. However, I feel like there's always room to grow, and so we're going to keep these plan of actions and continue to grow. If you were to ask me, if I were queen for the day, I'm only that at home, but if I were here, I would say that we would definitely need a district-wide mental health plan. It does not need to be school to school. It needs to be district-wide. Unfortunately, we are seeing a rapid growth of difficult behaviors due to mental health and traumatic experiences our students are seeing, and it's becoming earlier in life. And if we don't stop it at our level, at the elementary level, then it's bound to be worse at the high school level. So I would ask if I were queen for the day for that, as well as the creative liaison. I just think that our feeder pattern is going great places in creativity and community, and that's one of the areas that we could use some assistance. Are there any questions for me? Thank
Yeah,
you.
I got 2 questions.
Yes.
One is I like to read, and I was just wondering what your book was.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
really?
Yeah, you said you all did a book study.
Oh, the books. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. No, I don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. The book study that.
She's just written a book. So
Yes.
Right.
I read about it.
Oh, okay.
So she
Well, I'll read that one
said-
too.
Home Alone.
Yeah.
We read the differentiated instruction, and I'd be happy to send you a copy. We have a few copies left.
So I got your book and that book to read.
Okay, I can do that as well. Home Alone. Any other questions?
It's great work.
Thank you. Thank
Did you
you
have
so
another one,
much.
Barry?
I guess this is for both of the elementary principals. What do you expect the creative liaison to do for your school?
I'm thinking that we are needing someone that can assist us with weaving all of the curriculum. As we're seeing now in education, it's no longer just some students want to have subject area learning. We have students that do things with the arts. That's phenomenal. We have students that are in musical or in the theaters. And so we just want to be able to assist our middle school and high school with what are they doing that we can do to assist them when they get there and be part of the graduate that they're expecting from our students. So that's what we mean by a creative liaison.
We have a job description here written that we'll be happy to share with you.
Please, thanks.
Because I figured that would be another day.
Oh, well, thank you so much. They're prepared. Wow.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Jade Bolton. I'm the principal at Flat Rock Middle School, home of the Eagles. And I'm very pleased and proud to stand before you today to review a few things. First of all, as you have before you on our snapshot, we had a really great year of growth, as demonstrated by our CCRPI, not only in just our score, but even in digging down when you look at the components of mastery, closing gaps, progress, and readiness. Of course, I want to attribute that to 5 major things that is happening at Flat Rock pretty much on a daily basis. The first and most important is our staff and the belief in our kids. In technical terms, that's called collective efficacy, which means our students very much have partnerships in all of our staff in our building. Our teachers believe in them. When we received our CCRPI last year, our teachers were very disappointed in that we did not believe that that was reflective of our students or us. And so as a result of that, we rolled our sleeves up and we were determined at that point to really put our heads together, change a few of our practices at our school, and try to do things a little smarter and not harder. So number one, collective efficacy, meaning that we believe in our students and we have a unified belief in them. Number two, our strategic and very intentional scheduling that we do. We have a very robust RTI process within our school that's led by our RTI interventionist and our assistant principal, IILT, who meets with our teacher teams monthly on a regular basis, reviewing students and how they're doing. And as a result of that, we are very intentional in the scheduling and in providing additional remedial support for those students who need it. The third thing I think that would attribute a lot to our growth is our common assessment. We went to mandatory common assessments second semester in all content areas. And I realize the emphasis a lot is English language arts and math. However, we did so in science and social studies because we are focusing on literacy and, of course, nonfiction reading in science and social studies is a huge gain, particularly when you add the writing component to it. The fourth reason is we had some additional remedial support, not only through our Title I services, which we are able to hire some part-time personnel to help in the area of reading and math, but also with some very creative allotment. I was also able to put an additional math teacher there for the last 2 years. Having said that, when you say, well, did you focus a lot on remediation? Well, we did, but we did so in what I would refer to as a more high-performing strategy, which is previewing. When students are able to see information ahead of time before they're actually getting to that in the class, they are much more secure, they're much more confident in their learning, and that was demonstrated. And so we focus a lot in our remedial classes on previewing of information for students who may struggle a little bit, as opposed to doing a lot of review. There is time for that, but more importantly, the teachers saw huge gains in students coming back into the classroom having previewed that information with another teacher. And then lastly, I think number 5 is our interdisciplinary style that we do in our STEAM connections here this year, being a STEAM school. We are really emphasizing a cohesive interdisciplinary approach to learning, which is more exciting for kids. It makes learning more relevant for kids. It gives them real world problems that are actually happening in our school, in our county, wherever, in businesses and community. And they put their heads together and they come up with solutions. And they have to utilize their understanding of math and reading and writing and all of these skills, social studies and science, in order to come up with an appropriate response. Here, our students get an opportunity to speak and to collaborate and to create and to mess up, because that's what we want them to do. We want them to fail so that they don't just quit, but then they back up and then develop the rigor to eventually solve the problem, or at minimum, get better based on the feedback that they get. So we attribute our growth to those 5 areas in particular. As you can see, if you look on the right side, we had growth in every area. We're very proud of that, but also in our school climate. And we emphasize relationship within our schools, respect and responsibility, and safety. Those are our 3 PBIS rules. And of course, we also put a lot of emphasis on our community and parent relationships. We're able to do that through Title I resources of our parent liaison, who of course has a great outreach in connecting to parents, helping them understand what's happening in school, being really the bridge between the two. So I believe that all of this combined is what really got us to where we are today. However, we don't rest on that. We have already begun the process of making sure not only that we maintain, but we continue to offer these services and get better at them in the following years. So if you look at the bottom of our particular sheet, you'll see our growth plan. We are not satisfied, as in any principal is not satisfied, until all subgroups within their building are achieving. And not just achieving in the developmental level, but we are really pushing for our kids to be in level 3 or 4. And we're very pleased that if you'll look at the closing gap score, particularly when you compare it from last year to this year, We are very pleased with that. That means that those students that came in our building, regardless if they were behind, 2 years behind in performance, or 2 years ahead of their grade level, they grew. We're really proud of that. That really demonstrates what's happening in the classroom. We put a lot of emphasis last year, as my colleagues have shared as well, on professional learning. Number one, making sure that we had fundamental ground roots, good instruction happening in the classroom, utilizing those best practices. But then other than that, we also wanted to make sure we're focusing on those kids who aren't quite getting it in the normal way. And how do we do that? How do we help them and support them so that they are able to do the creative things in our STEAM environment, but they're also getting the fundamental skills? You'll notice at the bottom, it talks about obviously our achievement goal and some of the plans of action that we have. And then to the right, it measures mainly our attendance, which was good. But we obviously will continue to work on that. And that's really about outreach to parents. And so they're supporting that at home, making sure the students come to school, and to kids, making sure that they want to come to school. And then finally, of course, utilizing those actions within our parent liaison, where we're creating community within our school, offering classes and education so that everyone is much more aware and involved. So we're very pleased with our progress, but we realize until you get to 100, you still got work to do, which we do, and we do recognize that. We've already begun. In fact, we started the year already working on that. So very pleased with the progress of our school, and we will continue to move forward.
Any questions? I just had one comment. I don't know if it was last spring or maybe last fall, we started talking about the previewing versus remediation.
Acceleration or previewing.
And I'm just really pleased to hear that that's yielding some dividends and
It makes
paying
a
off.
huge difference.
So,
Teachers really can see the difference in the regular setting when they are previewed the information in the remedial setting. Makes a huge difference in it. We really saw the results of that.
and I just remember, because if you're kind of constantly focusing on remediation, it's just hard to get ahead.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I'm glad that's really working out. But thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and they saved the rookie for last, so this is my first official presentation to the board in this position. Very excited about that. Once again, my name is Richard Smith, and let me just kind of, if you'll look at this, I'm going to take you through the journey that actually started with this back in the very tail end of June, okay? Once we got the data, and I want to thank two people, Brian Butera and Dr. Turner, we started drilling in because where the CCRPI landed this year for Sandy Creek High School, we were not pleased with it, and we had to take a hard look at ourselves about what's going on with this, okay? And there are areas that obviously we do need to improve on, work on, find ways to make things better. There are areas, however, that we did grow in, and I want to save that toward the end, okay? So what I'm going to do is kind of take you through this a little bit piecemeal and kind of let you know what we are doing or what we have been doing on the ongoing journey that we have. You will notice I've used the word journey twice because one of the first things that I did coming into the building was said, look, we've got to approach this as Sandy Creek. I'm very team-oriented. And I said, if we are going to do this as a community, as teachers, as educators, and as students, we have got to share this together. And so this year our theme for the school is Share the Journey. It's one of those things that I do believe in this concept that you've got to do it as a team. We do it. It takes a village in that idea. So the first thing that we looked at, and you can see on there from the chart, is the content mastery. In the content mastery, we did improve in ELA, but with math, science, and social studies, those three areas did drop. One of the things that we have started doing at Sandy Creek High School is examining really what is going on at the 9th grade level. The theory is that if we can capture the ninth graders and get them settled into what high school is all about, then it will begin to fix itself when they approach the 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and then also post-educational experiences. So one of the things that we have been actively doing is at the end of each grading period, okay, what we do is we sit down and actually develop where the students who are struggling, in what areas are they struggling in. Today we actually met with our ninth grade core teachers, shared information. They've had the 9 weeks and now the 13 and a half weeks progress report, and seeing what they are developing and seeing as areas that we can improve on as a school. What are some of the instructional strategies we can do? What are opportunities for remediation and also for previewing and acceleration? How can we get the students a little bit ahead? A lot of times if you have a student who is struggling and you can bring them and say, hey, look, I'm going to let you know what the vocabulary is for the next unit, then they can kind of go ahead, get comfortable with it, and then when it's introduced into the classroom, they will feel more comfortable with that actual subject areas, and it gives them a little bit of shot of confidence. That's never a bad thing with students, particularly at the ninth grade level. So this is one particular area that we are focusing in on fairly hard right now at Sandy Creek High School. In addition to this, we are looking at the progress scores. In addition to that, we are also looking at closing the gap. As one can see, that took a little bit of a drop. When we began to look at the data in this area, dealing with closing the gap, what kind of stood out to us the most, and I know this might be difficult for you to see, but in the totality of the scoring of the closing the gap here, what we notice is that the subgroup of Hispanics, they're not doing where we want them to be, okay? And so over the last couple of weeks, we have been brainstorming ideas of what we can do as a school to reach out and work with all of our students. Some of the areas that we are looking at here is possibly doing either a community night, a community outreach night. If they're unable to come to us, can we go to them and meet in where the communities where they're living so that we can make a connection with all our stakeholders saying Sandy Creek is their school and we value them. So this is an area that we are definitely focusing in on to help improve Sandy Creek as a whole as a school. The other thing that we are doing, and you will notice that we did have an increase in the graduation rate, is that we are continuing to do cohort studies. Right now we have 309 students in our freshman cohort. These are the pure ninth graders, I would like to call them, so you don't have any freshmores or repeaters in that group. Monitoring how they're doing, then taking the group out that are, I would like to call a freshmore, seeing where they are struggling, what we can do to get them back on pace with their cohort group, trying to give them incentives so that they understand the value of education in the school. So this is something that we have been working on. Now, I will refer to the readiness ranking. This is an area that I view as the non-EOC scores because a lot of the other three, progress, content mastery, and also closing the gap, look at the EOC test scores. Okay. Readiness, you will notice that we did go up in that area. And I think a lot of that is can be attributed to the fact of the career, creative, community setting that we have been talking about throughout our entire feeder pattern. You will notice that there has definitely been an uptick when it comes to accelerated enrollment, dual enrollment, and pathway completion. Last Thursday night, I can say that we actually had the ribbon cutting event on the TV studio. That pathway will be a pathway completing, pathway complete option starting next year with the third year option in that. And from what we can gather talking to the students and also hearing in the community that this is a pathway that a lot of people are very, very excited about. But in addition to that, with our strong CTSOs that we have at Sandy Creek High School with the competitions that they do, it is giving the students that oomph that they want to have of saying, look, this is a career that I am very interested in doing, and we continue to give those give those opportunities to them. In addition to that, one of the other growth plans that we've been doing this year is a strong emphasis on what I would call occupational literacy. Sometimes you will hear this actually discussed as disciplinary literacy. But the concept of this is that while students may be able to read and write, when they get into the more advanced skills, they have to understand how to present themselves, how to read information that can be very technical in the field that they're going on, and have to understand and speak well to that matter. So this has been a big emphasis that we've been doing this year. We're doing a lot of cross-curricular writings that are going on a standardized rubrics that as a team we develop for our teachers on this. In addition to that, the growth plan we're looking at, once again, continue to increase the graduation rate. I'll let you read that, but the last one I would like to kind of emphasize a little bit is taking a look, once again, at the 9th grade level and looking at next year the possibilities of thinking of maybe a different way of scheduling 9th graders, housing a 9th graders. You could call this an academy, you could call this a 9th grade hallway. There are various things that you can call this, but I think after talking with our 9th grade teachers, in the core particularly, everybody sees that there is something that we can do better for the 9th grade, and that maybe we need to look at how we are actually structuring their day through the high school. So these are the areas that we are looking at. Just wanted to touch on those, and I will open it up for questions.
Any questions or comments? I think Dr. Barrow has some experience with 9th grade academies.
All right. Thank you.
I just want to thank all of you and your staff for all the hard work you guys have done. We, as a board, we really appreciate it.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if no other questions for the Sandy Creek feeder pattern, thanks, guys. We appreciate the good presentation. I'd like to move on to item 7B. This is our learning management system update. I know Mr. Farmer and Ms. Crawford, I think Dr. Turner maybe even, excuse me, coming up to give you an update on where we are with the, excuse me, the evaluation results with regard to the LMS review.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We are happy to be here in front of you again. It seems like it was just yesterday. Earlier this year, we talked a little bit about our evaluation process, and we have wrapped that up. We had approximately 300 teachers, students, and parents either evaluate through vendor presentations or go in and actually look at each learning management system through a sandbox environment. I feel very strongly about these teachers and the recognition that they deserve. They did this in a voluntary or potentially voluntold basis, but I'd like to think they volunteered to help us with this, and we are exceedingly grateful, as well as to our students and also our parents. So we really didn't feel like there was anybody that could speak to this better than teachers and students themselves. So I, with great honor, would like to introduce to you Dr. Brian Harmon from Fayette County High School to come up and talk a little bit about his experience.
I was voluntold, by the way, but it was an honor.
It's good to see you, Brian.
It was an honor. Good to see you too, Dr. Barrow. So I don't want you all to think those initials behind my name mean that I'm any expert in technology. I'm not. I got my PhD in educational policy studies, and I have a qualitative certificate, which means I owe Georgia State a lot of money. My master's in English education, my undergrad's in art education, and I'm 2 classes shy of a degree in philosophy, if you can believe that. So I say all that to say that I'm not a science teacher. I'm not an AV tech teacher or anything like that. I'm a good old-fashioned English teacher at the Fayette County High School, and we put that "the" in there so you know we're the namesake school. So we're proud of that. So I've been teaching for 13 years. I want to tell you that because I'm not like a first-year or second-year teacher, and I'm just anxious to get into new technology. I've been doing it long enough to where I'm not jaded, but I'm in it. I've also been doing it enough to, have those strategies and those core principles in place. So, so one thing I wanted to start off by saying was we did thoroughly go through both the Canvas and the Schoology LMS systems, and what we saw we actually liked. And so I'm going to go through and talk to you about why we think that it is a good idea to change over, and why, and some of the glitches that we're having right now. I don't know if you all had any say-so in this, but we started a Nearpod thing with the district. And Nearpod is great. It's a very powerful tool, and it works for the most part. But the system was very clunky. It was not very intuitive. And if you didn't know, recently Nearpod actually changed a little bit. If anybody in here loves using Google Slides, now when you open up a Google Slide, you can just import Nearpod things in there. So it has all those things we love about Nearpod, the interactiveness, the analysis of the data and things like that. And you can actually move your students through presentations, but now it doesn't have that clunky, non-intuitive system that it had before. It knows how good Google is at being a simple, effective tool. And I think that's what Blackboard is missing. Blackboard is like the Nearpod of LMS systems without that evolution. So I was told to address a few questions about why we need to change. One of the questions is why move from something we know? And I guess I'll counter that with who says that the teachers know Blackboard? And I'm not trying to snitch, but you'll be surprised at how many teachers actually do not use it with fidelity, right? It's a powerful system, but a lot of them are having issues with it. Again, it's not very intuitive, and the system is quite clunky. Most of the teachers, in fact, use Google Classroom, and I know they won't admit it if there's any teachers here. But it was such a problem that I believe our technology department found a way to incorporate Google Course Kit into Blackboard. That's just how bad Blackboard was. We needed something that talked to Google. And though we were like #1 in the country, I think, with using that, it's still, we were using something that Google had inside of Blackboard. So a lot of people were staying away from Blackboard in that sense. I was asked again, will this be easy? And I don't think that we're looking for easy. I think we're looking for streamline. We want a powerful system. We want a complex system, but we also want it to be intuitive. We want teachers to pick it up and be able to use it quickly. That's why Google Classroom is so effective at that, right? Blackboard, for all its capabilities, isn't user-friendly, so no one doesn't even know about all the bells and whistles. We're constantly talking about the different things that it can do. I'm constantly telling other teachers, like, hey, it can do this. I just have to show you these 20 convoluted steps how to get there, right? So I know one thing that I've been stressing since day one, and I know we're moving towards that with the county, is standards aligned assessments and even putting it on our report cards. Blackboard actually does that. You can tag any assignment, any multiple choice question, any rubric part with the standard. But once you have them, you can't do anything with them. I can't print out a report. I can't analyze them. I can't share them with other people. So I have all this data and I can't do anything with it. It's one of those hiccups with Blackboard. It's like they started something, but they didn't see it through to a logical end. Another thing, why move teachers away from something they know? And why do we assume they know it? Again, when we were in the LMS learning thing together, we were actually learning that Blackboard could do some of the things that the people were presenting. It was like, oh, it can do that? And I'm like, yeah, it can do that, and it can kind of do that, but not as well, and it can also do that. And so even with the people who had mastered the technology, quote mastered, we still were at a loss at all the things that it could do. Again, Blackboard had failed in that endeavor. Why move? Why have teachers go through more training and more time? I don't see us having to do any more training. I think the training we did for Blackboard was LMS training, and we have that, right? Blackboard is an LMS system. We had to be trained on how to use an LMS system, and now we have those core principles. Moving over to Schoology or Canvas, the learning curve for that is extremely low, so there's no more training needed. As soon as we got the I guess we call it sandbox. I don't want to use Blackboard nomenclature. But when we were given the pilot program, it took everything in Blackboard that I had and moved it over. And I have a lot of stuff, so it took a couple days. But it synced up perfectly. And so now I haven't missed a beat with using it and learning the system and things like that. Some of the issues that I'm having with Blackboard, and understand that I am a Blackboard super user. Right? I'm not only a, what's the term? I'm not only a client, I'm a customer? I don't know. Anyway, so I use it religiously in my class. All my classes, I use it. My students are, they don't like it, but hey, they have to do it. But it does not talk to IC well. When I make an assignment, I don't know if you know the system, but it pushes to IC, it pushes the grades. But in order to change the grades, you have to either change the grade in Blackboard and wait until that 4 or 5 o'clock window for it to change, or you have to turn off the due date in Blackboard, go into IC and change the grade. Otherwise, it'll just keep pushing the grades. It's a very finicky system. It multiplies things. It's very strange. I believe the technology department had an issue with a teacher who we thought we were doing something correct, but obviously none of us are, but it has multiplied our tests, our rubrics, and things like that. For somebody like me who has a lot of tests and things, it has now gone from 4 pages of tests to about 22 pages of tests, and they've all been multiplied. So it's a very strange issue, and it's something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. The feedback feature is a little strange. It's like Windows 95. All I can do is comment and say, hey, don't do that anymore. With Schoology and Canvas, I can embed video comments. I can put comments in and tag those comments to standards, and the students don't have to find them. So often I give feedback, and I give a lot of feedback. I'm a good old English teacher. But I have to show the students every time how to get to those grades because the system just does not make any sense. And they're like, oh, that's all I had to do? I'm like, yeah, I spent all that time putting it in, and you didn't know. The Google Course Kit, of course, is limited. Like I said, it's just a Google solution inside of Blackboard. It does not integrate Google Drive, so our students cannot pull an assignment from their Google Drive directly. They have to download it as a PDF and then upload it, and it's just not very user-friendly. The Turnitin plugin does not work. English department requires us to put Turnitin, filter our papers through Turnitin to check for plagiarism. That app does not work in Blackboard. I'm sorry, it doesn't. So we go outside of outside of Blackboard to use it. I'm going to stop this list. Oh, even as a parent, I have a child in the county, and as a parent, I do not know how to access Blackboard. I know I should be ashamed of myself, but I just tell her to pull it up with her own account so I can see what she has. So there are just some things that, and I noticed some things they're trying to fix. I can't move anything from folder to folder. I don't know. It's almost like they've given up. So I think it could be a good system. I think it could have been a good system, but I don't know if they have abandoned the updates or something, but it is extremely frustrating for a teacher who uses it as much as I do. I'm going to wrap this up with talking about the innovative ways that I use technology in my classroom. I want to say something about how people scrutinize technology sometimes. This has been happening for the longest. I know with one-to-one, people had pushbacks, the unintended consequences of screen time. Back in the late 19th century, they actually scorned ballpoint pens. They said that it would make the students lazy instead of using fountain pens. Even before that, good old-fashioned, I'm a good old philosophy major, remember that. Writing was discouraged as well. There's this, Plato had this dialogue about Thamus, and he was arguing to Socrates that writing would spoil our memory. The technology of writing would spoil our memory. So this is nothing new. Anytime there's something new that comes, somebody always wants to scrutinize it. But in my class, I try to integrate the pedagogy that I've learned in college and my content mastery, and I try to use technology to better those skills. Research papers. I wrote a dissertation, and maybe 5 people have read it. But I do know that the power of showing students how to do different forms of research papers. I teach them how to do it as a podcast. I've taught students how to do them documentary style. In fact, one of my old students contacted me and said, do you still have my paper? Because she's a film major now, and she wants to use that documentary that she started in college. We go on field trips. I graduated a student years ago. He opened his own studio, and the technology department helped me with this. But we used Blackboard, and there's a program within Blackboard. But we were able to have my student come and present and take my students on a tour of his studio and talk about what he learned in school and how he uses those skills to help him run his business. We do a virtual class. I have a student that was recently, I hope this doesn't get me in trouble, but I have a student that was recently suspended for fighting, and I talked to him about it, and you know, he was remorseful, of course, and he did not want to fall behind. So I'm using a program to, he's in the class without being in the class. He hears my lectures, he sees the screen, I can record the presentations for him, I email him, like, hey, you up? We're about to start. And he's able to get everything, and he's keeping up, he's taking the quizzes and everything. So done correctly, technology works.
Yeah,
but we have to.
So, Dr. Harmon,
Yes.
so you're basically recommending we move on from Blackboard?
I'm recommending we move on
Okay,
from
I just wanted
Blackboard.
to-
Yes, sir.
All right,
But yeah, so
thanks.
no problem. Any questions?
No, continue.
I mean,
Continue.
Oh, okay. So the last thing is equitable access. So I want to make sure that we know that teachers will use the technology if it's something that they're able to use as a tool that's intuitive and something they can actually grasp and use easily. And when we went through this process of finding the best thing, I can't speak for them, but I know for me, Schoology worked much better than Blackboard. It's like they improved on Blackboard in every single way, and I love it. So anything else? I got some fancy stuff here. That's
Roy,
it.
did you have a question?
well, I wanted to wait for him to finish.
Yes, that's it. I don't need to. There's some artistic stuff in here and some poetic stuff I don't need to end with. But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, I was a principal when they brought in Blackboard. They said it was the best thing since sliced bread, but teachers said, this too shall pass. You didn't answer that question for me. Why are teachers not going to say about Schoology, this too shall pass?
It's an interesting question. I think that speaks to the heart of what an LMS system is. At this point, with one-to-one, we need to have an LMS system. I don't think that teachers conceptualize the idea that we need a hub for all things. Whether you're in a college program, whether you're in a virtual online schooling, there needs to be somewhere where all this stuff is housed. So whether we get rid of Blackboard or not, we need something. Google Classroom was never designed to be that thing. When we had the meeting with Google, they even told us this is not to replace an LMS. They're building their data to know what to do when they come out with their master system. But at this point, we have to have something that houses the things that we create, something that can do the things we need it to do with analysis and stuff like that. So their limited purview of what it could do is probably why they said those things.
Okay, so tell me how this is going to grab the teachers that they're not going to say, this too shall pass, and they're going to say, I want to do this.
Well, the first thing is they don't have to do any extra work. Whatever they have done in Blackboard, it's already there for them. The second thing is your teachers probably wanted to go back and use Google Classroom. And one of the reasons is it's probably one of the most important inventions that Google has made. It happens when a student turns in a paper to you, the teacher, it automatically takes their permission and signs it over to you. So they're no longer the owner of that. That was revolutionary for any teacher that teaches any student. It means that they have to stop working on it, and now you have the power to share it or disseminate it or whatever. And that's one of the things that Schoology, for instance, can do. It's not making you do 10 clicks to do one thing. It's one thing that you're doing. It also communicates better. My students, I told them I was talking to you today, and one of my students was like, I like Google Classroom better. I was like, well, why? He was like, because when I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, I just get an alert on my phone, and it's instant. That's because Google Classroom talks directly to Google. Schoology talks directly to Google because it's directly integrated. So I think that Blackboard was like, oh, wow, this is great, but that's because we needed something. But once we got in there, we realized this is limited. We need something else because it's extremely frustrating. And that's why people are going back to, for instance, Google Classroom.
Yeah, I just had a comment. I'm also an unhappy former user of Blackboard, and Georgia Tech abandoned it about 10 years ago, so when we adopted it, my experience was a little bit stale, and I was hoping that they had fixed all the bugs and the problems as promised, and it sounds like the problems I experienced have persisted.
They have.
And I just feel your pain, and I wholeheartedly support changing to any other learning management system that you think will help you do your job better.
Thank you. I convinced one person.
Dr. Harmon, what about, you didn't speak about Canvas. I read all the high school evaluations, and it was pretty unanimous that Schoology was superior. What's your opinion?
I believe that Schoology was superior, but to be honest with you, I think the Canvas didn't have as good of a presentation. It's like I cooked a lot in college, and presentation is everything, right? When I worked at Waffle House, if you had grease on the plate and all this, I could have cooked you the same thing, but this plate over here looks better. It's more presentable. So the way Canvas was presented to us was sloppy. And so, like any teacher, we're like, I'm going to go with this one. So I would say that within 95% of the things that they can do, they have the same capability. The one big difference was Schoology is organized like Blackboard is. It's a cascading folder system, which I think is how things should be arranged. Whereas Canvas was more of a linear kind of stream sort of thing that we didn't like as much.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so just to kind of go through each feeder pattern's data, if you would, please, Kay. Starting with teacher rubric categories. I know many of you have had a chance to look at that. And then I have a link there for you to examine the full, of course, teacher rubric. It was pretty exhaustive. I had, the department had exceptional children's services. We had many other departments within the district weigh in on those categories and the different specifics of the rubric as well. Okay. Thank you. Fayette County High School feeder pattern. We took the averages, of course, and then totaled everything up of all scores on the rubric. And as you can see, for the Fayette County High School feeder pattern, which was from Fayetteville Elementary all the way to the high school, Schoology was ahead with a total score, or an overall, of 271. McIntosh, again, Schoology, overall score 254. Sandy Creek, 287 for Schoology. Stars Mill, 270 for Schoology, and Whitewater, 266 for Schoology. And that data will be posted, just to kind of reiterate the transparency of the process, that will be posted for everyone within the district to take a look at as well, including all comments. And then if we could go, there it is. There's my next slide. So
Hey, Kate,
you've heard from,
I
yes.
just had a comment about that.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at the votes, and they're close enough to where, both of the systems are well liked. And just picking one of the high score from people who have never used either system doesn't seem like the best way to make a decision. If you think Canvas is the better technology, as the expert, I think that the expert should decide now that you have the data. And I'm just not sure if people who've never used the system voting is the way to make a decision.
Well, the
But
teachers.
you've got two really good systems, and now you can make a decision, I
Absolutely.
guess. But
The teachers had about, Mr. Farmer?
And I would say, when we spoke with both the companies, one of the things we found was that they both have free versions that you can use.
Mm-hmm.
And they both told us we had, in some cases, more than 100 teachers already using their tools. So some of the teachers that were involved in the rubric process, the evaluation process, were using.
So using one of these instead of Blackboard?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, heresy.
But also, one of the things, part of the evaluation process was we gave them about 5 weeks in a sandbox of that environment. So those close to 260 teachers that participated spent time using
So
Canvas.
they're actually using it for their classroom management,
Yes.
or are they just kind of playing with it?
They had it wasn't a full-blown version because of all the integrations that are required to be full-blown.
So you're just seeing the graphics and
But
the-
no, it was actually putting a course in and having some sample students in, so it wasn't full-blown usage like a Blackboard scenario, but they did get to dive in and see some of the features and some of the tools, some of the assessment pieces, discussion boards, and they got a lot of the features. And the other part I did want to mention was it was really important for us to get, not just our teachers' feedback, but we reached out to our peers in Georgia, and I'm also on the board with some national organizations, and reached out to people in Texas and in South Carolina and in a couple different states that were Canvas users, that were Schoology users, and we had some really good feedback, so that's been part of the process as well.
Felt really strongly about taking out the sales people and really talking to people who are actually using the systems. So next I'd like to bring up, we're honored also to have Cole Gummerson come up tonight and speak to you a little bit about the student perspective and his experience in getting into those sandboxes as well. So Cole, Bennett's Mill Middle School.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I want to share my knowledge on not just Canvas and Schoology, but also Blackboard. And I deal with Blackboard on a daily basis since I am a student. And I don't just deal with having the student perspective, but I help teachers maybe build their Blackboard or find what the problems are with their Blackboard. And for students, it's not a user-friendly resource. I cannot begin to tell you how many times I have had to go and fix a grading issue, a login issue. No matter what kind of issue it is, we get to see what problem it is. So I've got plenty of experience behind Blackboard, Canvas, and Schoology. I believe that it's not very user-friendly, that we need to kind of move on to something that could be more beneficial for students and teachers. A new LMS could provide something like a one-stop shop. We have a program already called ClassLink, which is supposed to be one of our one-stop shop kind of deals where you go and you sign on to just one program and it gets you access to every other program that we have. It's not helpful in the way that you don't get it in your class. So what would be beneficial with that program is having your teachers maybe embedding what they want, and unfortunately that program can't do it. But the new LMS programs, both Canvas and Schoology can. They can embed third-party programs into the program, such as vocabulary, Think Circa, Quizlet, all of that kind of stuff. And if the school decides to purchase it or the county decides to purchase it, they can both go into the program. 3 reasons that we should move over to a different program is teachers don't use Blackboard. It's not convenient, it's not user-friendly, like I've said, and it's just not very nice to use. It's not, for me, I'm all about, does it look nice? It does not look nice. It is not very organized at all. So a new program such as Schoology would be easy to move to, as Dr. Harmon said, where you can just move over your Blackboard. We were sitting in the meetings and some of my teachers were actually moving in their Blackboards, and they would put me in as a student so we could see how it was working with either the Blackboard, how Blackboard looked, and how Schoology or Canvas looked. And we were able to play around with that, see how could I submit an assignment, all of that. My second reason is that Blackboard relies on the teachers to be organized. With a student, we want to be able to have some control in our program. So we would like to be able to organize, maybe make it fit our needs. I know my Google Drive is crazy color coordinated, all of that fun stuff. And so if I can have more organization, I will take that up. And so with Canvas or Schoology, on Canvas, you can color coordinate it, which I love. And on Schoology, you're able to sort it by period with dragging and dropping, and that's fun. My third reason is, again, third-party programs don't go well with Blackboard. We have, tried to put Think Circuit in there, did not work. We have a Quizlet. One of our teachers put in Quizlet, and it is awesome on Blackboard. It's even better on Schoology. So you can go in and make it so that you can see what the students are doing. It's so much fun on Schoology. I actually got to play around with both of the programs, and Schoology is my favorite. Not only was Canvas harder to use than Schoology, but when I tried to link in like maybe some assignments, it wasn't very friendly from the student's point of view, nor the teacher's point of view. You just got a nice old list of, here's all of my assignments, try and find which one's today. So that's about my opinion on there. I don't have data, I don't have any of that, because I don't see teacher's point of view from a teacher. I see it as a student, so I don't get that kind of data, but I'm sure that Dr. Harmon and some of our advisors over here would happily be able to give you the data and show you, hey, this is what teachers are using, this is how they're using it, and all of that kind of stuff. Are there any questions?
Thank you. And great.
You did a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Cole.
Okay, and so a little bit of our student data comes up with the consecutive slides or the next slides. We did have, my team had an opportunity to work with 4th and 5th grade students as well. And we had a few just kind of prompting questions just to gather some data for ourselves about what teachers were currently using in their classrooms. I know I've talked to some of you. I know Dr. Barrow, we've talked about this before, about parents having one location to go. I've had many questions about why are my teachers, half of them are in this system and half of them are in the other system. So we do feel like we've got a really great solution to bring everyone under one specific platform. The next slide was just a student opinion piece. Is it important to you that your schoolwork and your resources, like your e-textbook, be available online? Well, yes, of course. So again, those are 4th and 5th graders that are saying that. There is a lot to be said for consistency and equity of where students can access their content and materials. 6th through 12th grade, here we have currently post our classwork online using, and you can see there's a combination there and also Blackboard. And then 6th through 12th grade, the importance, and you can see overwhelmingly, it is very important to our 6th through 12th graders. Parent feedback, we had the superintendent's parent advisory board watch 2 vendor presentations. I had some, other conversations with parents outside of that meeting, and we offered a sandbox environment to all of those parents. We've only had one take us up on it. But if you will, Kay, some of the feedback here, first and foremost, I have on the left-hand side of the slide, how, do you have multiple children in your household? And you can see overwhelmingly, those parents had more than just one child, which is another issue with us having some students or some teachers in one system and some in another, as well as having a system that's hard to access. And then on the right there, you have, of course, those scoring based on category and feature from those vendor presentations as well. And then this is feedback and next steps. Dr. Turner, Mr. Farmer, and I, of course, are working really closely with our teams to ensure that everyone knows where we are in the process, has input on the process coming up very soon, and then, of course, just that ongoing feedback. Principals have also submitted some initial feedback about what they foresee as, of course, pending board approval, the training plan, and implementation planning So looking forward I've got Dr. Lane, Dr. Broadhead, and Dr. Berryman who are really helping us to kind of have those conversations with their peers about not only the training plan, but also what those expectations of usage are for the teachers in their buildings. Okay, that's all I have. Any other questions?
Are you guys recommending Schoology?
I think
Or the
based
decision has
on
not
the-
been made yet, or?
based on the feedback, as you saw the numbers, that it clearly stood out to our teachers and our students. And the parent piece was, I think, very close. But based on the feedback that we've gotten and the time that teachers have spent on this, and their overwhelming, voice has been for Schoology.
And the teacher in your house.
Yes, I might have one in my house that was part of that process.
That's when you want to make the change.
Board members, I felt like we needed to share with you the due diligence our folks had gone through. I know over 5 years ago when we were looking at bringing an LMS to the district, a lot of things happen and change within 5 years with technology. And at the point, we did what I thought was a very thorough job in vetting all of the available LMS pieces that were out there. There were Edmodo and It's Learning and a host of others. Schoology and Canvas were very much in their infancy. Blackboard was a much fuller developed program at that time, and they had big plans to really improve the K-12 setting. They were more the university setting. That just hasn't happened for us. And unfortunately, we haven't embraced the LMS nearly as much as we could have or should have because of the lack of ease of use. It was very difficult to get our arms around, and consequently, I don't think people were being obnoxious, Mr. Raybold. I feel like they didn't grasp it. It didn't feel good. It didn't work well, and that's the reason why we felt that we had to begin to look and see if there was a better model out there. I am totally committed with regard to an idea of having an LMS in our district. I feel like our folks have done a great job. I don't think the lift is going to be as heavy this year because of what Dr. Harmon said. Our staff is at least somewhat familiar with how an LMS should work if it's fully functional. I think we've gone through, and I think we've got a good case to recommend Schoology, but we didn't want to get the cart in front of the horse. We felt like we needed to present the data first.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think one comment, first as a parent, I agree with everybody that Blackboard is horrible, and I don't remember who said that they didn't know how to log. I think it was Dr. Harmon. I had to call Berryman 4 times trying to figure out how to log in. I think it's horrible, but I do think the only way this wins is YouTube. If you can't push it out and get the teachers using it, it's not fair to the kids, honestly. And I think you understand what I'm saying. If I'm in one class and she uses Google Classroom and Dr. Marchman uses his own website and Dr. Barrow uses Schoology, you have to somehow put a stop to that and mandate use at a teacher level. And if you can't do it, you got to get with the principals and get with Dr. Barrow, because I think we're all on board. But I'm just thinking as a parent and as a technology guy, we don't fix it from the top. There's a very real chance that it doesn't really spread out the way we would all want it to.
So
I'm with you.
Mr. Anderson, I agree. I think one of the things that, I think I've stated to the board before is from my very first day on the job, I've been made very aware of the issues we've had with Blackboard. And to your point, Dr. Marchman, this has been a very long process, and we've been very diligent about being smart about it. And there's been some delays because of things that have happened in the technology world that, have made us kind of pull the reins a little bit and hold off to see what was going to happen. And we're really glad we did that because there were some changes that led us down to the road where we are now on with having it narrowed down to just 2. We started off looking at about 6 different platforms about a year and a half ago. And to get to this point, there was a lot of factors involved. And one of the things we've said from the very beginning is this is not a technology initiative. This is a Fayette County initiative. And so to your point, we've shared out an LMS evaluation website with all of our teachers, with all of our schools, And Dr. Barrow, myself, and Dr. Turner, and Kate kind of had a fireside chat, so to speak, as Dr. Barrow called it. And we shared that out with all of our faculty to just have a good understanding of, the what's of what we were doing and the why that we want to have an LMS in Fayette County, the importance of it, and the value that it will bring if we have the right tool. Now, I'm also not naive enough to think that if we go with Schoology, it's going to answer all of our problems and we'll be, it'll be all wonderful and rosy. We're going to have issues, and that's fine, but the overall platform and where they are and the feedback we've gotten from other districts across the country that are using it has been extremely positive, and that's been very reassuring in this process.
And I think I can speak for myself, Mr. Farmer, and Dr. Turner. We could not be more committed at ensuring that our teachers have something that is easier to use, that our students have something that they can go in and they can customize, as Cole mentioned, and they can see their own data and how they're doing, as well as parents can go in and see that as well. And so, as Mr. Farmer mentioned, we've looked at several different platforms, and we really have felt strongly that these were two great choices. We also felt strongly that this was teacher-led, and this was teacher voice, and it was time to do right by them, and to ensure that we provide the best tool out there possible.
Our goal would be to bring this back to you at the December meeting for a recommendation. I can cut to the chase and tell you that. I think we've done all the due diligence. We're pretty solid on where we need to go.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I just want to be clear. I'm, do away with Blackboard. That's fine with me, and we do need an LMS system. The reason I asked the questions of Dr. Harmon that I did is exactly what Mr. Anderson said. When Blackboard came on, we were told, and I was a principal then, that every teacher must use it. And you're telling me, and that's what I'm banking on, that the commitment is going to be there, that they have to do it. Because I, as a principal, tried to make them do it, and most of my teachers did, and they hated it. And that's why I asked Dr. Harmon, what's in it for the teacher? What's going to make the teacher say, oh, man, this is great. I love this. And they're not going to take that attitude of, well, here we go, another new system. They're telling us we have to do it, but nobody's making us do it. And so it's going to go away, and we'll be able to do whatever we want. And so Mr. Anderson made that point, and that's the only point I'm trying to make. Are the teachers going to love this? Are they going to jump on it? And there's a commitment there that here it is. We spent the money for it. You've got to use it, and you better use it, or. That's my only point.
I got another question. Some of the decisions we wrestle with, you talk to teachers, and there's a natural divide. For example, like the 6 versus 7 period day, you had the performing arts teachers wanted one thing, and the math and science wanted another thing. And so when you're looking at these two systems, is there a natural divide like that? Like science wants this and English wants that, or?
Not that we found, and talking to Dr. Lane, because Macintosh was a little bit close, so I was a little nervous, but Dr. Lane has used Canvas as he is taught as a professor. So that was kind of, I think, where the bias was. There wasn't, though, really, Dr. Marchman, where there was a natural divide between any one department over another. We just got a lot of really great feedback across the board.
And I spoke with quite a few teachers and quite a few high school teachers. And actually, initially, in their conversations with me, they were, with their knowledge of LMSs, they were thinking, it was going to be Canvas all the way. And Schoology was just this, thing, we'll just take a look at it. And when they did start to take a look, as you saw the scores from the teachers, it did shift dramatically. And that, to us, was not a great surprise, because we've seen both platforms. And as you mentioned, I think based on those numbers and based on the quality of both platforms, we would be strong with either one, especially comparable to what we're using. So, but it was impressive that Schoology won over so many of our teachers.
So it was like 60-40, and I was just wondering if, all the math people wanted this, or it's not that way.
Not in any one particular way.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. If we can, we'll move on to our superintendent's report. Looking at item A, modernization planning process, I know that all of our board members are aware that we've had conversations with Southern Crescent Technical College and Clayton State. They've both expressed interest and actually a written letter of intent to explore this work. I wanted to be sure that the board was aware of the planning process that we need to go through. We actually have a meeting with both of those institutions on December 3rd. In order to get accurate cost for this type project, we would need to permission to secure a construction manager at risk and ultimately to put the project out for bid. It's not that the board is doing anything as far as moving it forward, but before we can do anything, we've got to figure out how much that this project is going to cost, and we can't do that without going through the planning process. So I wanted to let you know that our intent, unless otherwise directed, is to go ahead and begin having these conversations. We'll keep you informed as the process unfolds. Any comments, questions there? Okay. Item B deals with the State Board of Education meeting summary. It was for their November meeting. We've pushed this out. I know Dr. Turner and I have talked about this a good bit. I know there's been a lot of discussion about what some people feel is excessive high-stakes testing. And one of the ways that the State Department, the State Board has decided to try to minimize that is that any of our students that are taking advanced placement or the IB program, the baccalaureate program, would be, if they pass the course, they would be exempt from the EOC test. So, Dr. Turner, any other comments you'd like to make? I just want to make sure parents and students are aware of this. This happened just this month.
Well, one thing to note is that in terms of our accountability model, since these students won't be taking an end-of-course exam, what happens is that the grade that they make in that AP or IB course will be awarded points, like our weighted achievement is. An A would get 1.5 points, a B would get 1 point, a C would get 0.5 point, and then that would go into the CCRPI accountability model.
Okay. Any questions about that? We gave you the exact summary data there, so you take a look. But if you have any questions, please let Dr. Turner or me know. Last but not least, the last item, we had discussed this and had a presentation a couple of meetings ago about a school safety product we'd been reviewing called Centegix. I know there was a request to have a little bit more discussion. I wanted to make sure the board understood exactly what we were trying to do and the recommendations. And Mr. Sanders, he can speak to you about that. If we have questions, certainly we want to answer those for the board.
Just real quick, the feedback you got from other school systems who were using the system?
Yes, sir. I've spoken with several, but Douglas County being the primary one, I've actually gone to it and visited. And then a month later, at the Legal Issues Conference last week, I've spent some time with both their superintendent and their coordinator of safety and discipline. And they said it works like it should. There are some issues every now and then in the implementation of it, installation of with the intercom systems that they have to work through, and because every intercom system is a little bit different. But outside of that, they indicated to me this worked exactly the way they would hope it would.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. That's pretty much my superintendent's report. Mr. Hollowell, we can move to personnel. I know we have some retirements, resignations, reclassifications. We have some elections we'd like to recommend, and also some community coach recommendations. We would recommend the board approve the personnel report as submitted.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? 5-0.
Financial report, Mr. Gray.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Barrow, board members. So our standard reports, our cash report, $33.9 million on hand, which includes, all the operating and SPLOST accounts. The detail on the cash on hand, I have to admit and apologize. We did discover late this afternoon there's an error on this report. I should have discovered before we even posted it, and it has to do with the timing with money coming from the tax commissioner's office. They sent to us on October 30th, but there's dual approval process that they put in place. It didn't hit our bank until November 1st, so the numbers here aren't reflective of the proper balances in some of the accounts, but we'll get that corrected and post that tomorrow. Then if you go on, you'll see, if you go on the next one, Kay, we have the budgetary comparison. We've brought in $45.8 million so far for the year, 14 of that in the last month. And you can see that we've expended on the budgetary side about 33% of our budget, which is about a third of the way through the year, which is appropriate. On the projection sheet, you'll see at the top, we're about $1.1 million under budget at this point projected. And you'll see in the middle in the revenues about $1.2 million, $1.3 million under budget at this point. One thing I'll say that $15 million difference, if you look at the first column in the revenue and property tax for October, the orange line, you'll see that's only $3.8 million, and it would have normally been, it should have been about $18 to $20 million. But because of the timing of that posting, it's not reflected in the revenue. So that's why we had to, so the actually revenue they sent us 2 days before the end of the month, we didn't get until November, but it'll be caught up in the next month. At this point, we're projecting a fund balance down at the bottom, about $1.3 million at the end of the fiscal year, above our budgetary reserve. Okay. Then we have the SPLOST 1. We have a little less than $1 million that we're working on finishing up some projects in SPLOST 1. And SPLOST 2, which is where we have Connected Classroom, that's one of the main projects there. Also some of the security and textbook projects, and we have about $4.7 million left to allocate there. Still earning some interest earnings on SPLOST 2 money. And in SPLOST 3, we brought in almost $2.3 million, so we've been over $2.2 million pretty much for all of SPLOST 3, so the collections are still strong. And our main projects there are facilities and textbook projects. And of course, again, we've expended down all of the bond proceeds, and then from here we are making some debt service payments on the funds that were borrowed at the beginning of the SPLOST program. So, any comments or questions there?
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Gray. Appreciate it. Item 11, we have our minutes for, I think, 4 of our meetings. It's the only consent agenda item we have. I'd recommend the board approve.
Need a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? 5-0.
Okay, moving on to action items. I know Mr. Gray has shared with you, I guess, a couple of meetings about the need to increase our adult price meals. This is in order to be in compliance and where we need to be when we have our review later this year. The recommended increase is for breakfast up to $2.50 and for lunch $4.25. This only affects adult meals. It does not impact student meals. We would recommend the board approve so we could be in compliance.
Need a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. Why are we going up more than what we need to cover the cost?
Okay, well, thanks, Mr. Raybold. One of the things you'll notice is that this is a calculation based on fiscal year 2019. And so in the current fiscal year, we've already had increases for the salaries based on the COLA and the step increase, as well as TRS has gone up in this current year. So we anticipate needing to catch up and also cover the increase in the salaries and anticipated food costs in the current year. So we're making it mid-year, and we're hoping that we would not have to make any in 2021. Part of the reason is timing as well. Our administrative review will be looking at the 2020 year. So if we're not compliant for the 2020 year, when they do the administrative review in 2021, we will not have time to make any adjustment.
I asked the same question, Mr. Raybold. I thought we might could get by a little bit less, and we probably would be, but because of the increase in cost, I think it would catch us before the end of the year, and that's when we're going to have the review. And I wish that we weren't having to do this, but I also
I think it's
gotta
only
be-
like 5 cents.
Yeah,
But, if you eat every day, it's only $9. But I just want
It
to make
is.
sure, the appearances, we're trying to make money on the
Right, yeah,
profit.
this is really anticipating trying to get to the break-even point for adult meals. And adult meals overall are about 4% of what we serve.
Okay.
Well, without any other discussion or comments, we'll go ahead and call it for a vote. All in favor?
Yeah.
5-0.
Thank you. The last agenda item is the Centegic's recommendation. I think the board's aware that we did receive a state safety grant, and this is the primary funding source for this product. The overall recommendation is $740,000, with $20,000 of the cost to come from East Bloss funds. The $720,000 would come from the state safety grant. We would recommend the board approve.
Yeah, I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, comments?
I would say this, the state safety grant money has to be spent by June. Is that correct, Mr. Sanders?
Yes, sir. We'll have to, we'll press the button tomorrow to submit and consolidate it out, get their approval on it, and then once we have expended the money, then they reimburse us. And so the plan is to begin work on this almost immediately, as soon as they can get their order in, get their equipment in.
Okay.
Any other comments? Right, all in favor? 5-0.
Okay, moving on to just a couple of information items. I did want to again mention the supplemental retirement plan with Peach State Reserve. We had a couple of questions come up that Mr. Gray made us aware of, and we felt like before we ask you to approve the resolution, we need to get those questions answered. I would mention to the board that our open enrollment process closed out. It seemed to go very well with our new benefits provider. We're pleased with that. I also wanted to remind the board about the GSBA social media training tomorrow. It's at 8:30 at the Gozer Road. I think they actually start the training at 9. Talking about social media, we had an infographic on our system webpage. We now actually have over 13,000 followers on our current social media outlets. So that's becoming a way to inform our customers and our clients about what's going on in school. I think that's great. And last but certainly not least, we do have a legislative luncheon on November 21st, and hopefully we'll be able to see most all of our delegation there at that time. I do have a need to go into executive session for 2 items, one dealing with property and one dealing with personnel. I'd recommend the board go into executive session.
Need a motion and a second for executive session to discuss property and personnel.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? 5-0. We're adjourned. Okay, can we have a motion to return from executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Dr. Barrow, any recommendations?
No, sir, no recommendations at this time.
Okay, without objection, we're adjourned.